Okay, hi Dimitri, how are you today?
I'm great. How you doing?
Good. So we're going to talk today about your disintegration meeting on October 8th.
hmm
And the theme of your meeting was, can someone
Well,
be an atheist after a psychedelic experience? Is that right?
that's what sort of emerged. Yeah,
Go for it.
and I
Sounds-
and I think it's an interesting question because I mean there were some folks again who are in 12-step recovery. Actually, more. I mean, it just keeps on happening, which I think is a phenomenon that's of interest to me. And people were talking about part of the 12-step recovery is that you find you're restored by your faith in a higher power. So the idea of God, or HP as it's called in fellowship, higher power. And there were people there that were in 12-step recovery for years and had either lost or never were able to connect with faith, with God, with HP. And so that got into a conversation of what is the nature of that energy. We could call it source or universe or God in a psychedelic experience, and how much of the healing, what we call healing anyways, was coming from the self, and how much of it was coming through the drugs, the medicine, and how much of it was sort of divinely guided. And so we got to very specific answers. We answered all those questions, and that was the end of the day. No, to me, I don't understand how somebody can have, for example, an ibogaine. I mean, I understand the mechanisms, the sort of the rationale used to explain the phenomenon as something other than what I guess we would call experience with the divine. I mean, it could be just simply a chemical reaction that causes you to think some shit that is both chemical and culturally influenced. But to me, it doesn't suffice. So there were people in the group that had done, again, a bunch of folks were coming back from ayahuasca experiences, first time ayahuasca experiences. And they were talking about that space, and the folks that were struggling, not so much with using in the recovery, the 12-step recovery, but just their faith in the 12-step recovery, said that there was no question that there was a direct contact with that consciousness we call God. There's like some really famous, agnostics and atheists. What's the guy that's got the Vice series, the science writer who does all the drug sampling? Hamilton something, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I know
Yeah,
who you're talking about.
I mean, that guy's a straight up atheist. And so, I think that type of sort of profound faith in rationale and reason in the face of 5-MeO, for instance, is admirable. But I see it as sort of a faith. I mean, it's a strong faith, and you believe that you can, if not figure it out, then explain away by reductionist workings or analysis. So, but what came through from this meeting was people were just reconnected with this idea of God and how that manifests itself, and that they found in these experiences a safety afterwards in that relationship, at least in the ayahuasca relationships. My experience with DMT and talking to other folks, depending on the DMT, depending on the person, is somehow different. But I think the most profound statement of the day is, again, so I think there are about 4 people in the group, 4 or 5 people who were, newly into psychedelics, but long into 12 steps. But the most profound, explanation for what they received in this ayahuasca journey was that they found safety in the breath, in breathing again, and in practicing breath, and in practicing breath with intention, and breathing through it and into it. It was another beautiful group, but yeah.
So when you talk about the breath, is that something that they do during the experience with the psychedelic, or is this something you do after or before?
Well, I mean, yes, you can do it before. When I'm working with people, I usually have people go through some breath work, sort of, walking them through breathing, so that, helping bringing the drugs on, helping bringing the sound on, as a way to sort of ground yourself away from fear and into what is happening, and as a way of potentiating the drugs. During it, absolutely, you can calm people down, or you can calm yourself down through the use of breath, or send yourself off further through the use of breath. And afterwards, Stanislav Grof, developed the holanthropic breath work.
Okay, I've heard it pronounced holanthropic, but
yeah, it's probably the right way.
Okay. No, I was going to ask you about that because I just came across a YouTube video yesterday. Somebody was doing I guess you call it a tutorial on how to get that done.
Mm-hmm. It's a way of accessing these, psychedelic spaces. And I think quite effective. That's one way if you want to have sort of a trip. The other way is just relaxing yourself into the breath, which can be great if you have anxiety. But, just the connection with the breath and thinking about the breath, which a lot of folks don't do on a daily basis, I think is very powerful. And this guy coming back with that information from the psychedelic experience and encountering breath in a very different way, in a conscious way, I think is significant and maybe an indication of God.
Okay.
This inhalation and exhalation that happens for most of us that are healthy physically rather effortlessly.
So now, were there any conclusions in the group about, you talk about, can someone be an atheist after a psychedelic experience? So did anybody in the group talk about their religious beliefs before and then after the experience? So in other words, did somebody come in an atheist and then after the experience say, no way, I'm not?
Well, we didn't have that in the group, but I have seen that.
You have? In
my own personal working with people. There were people that talked about going back to their faith of origin, returning to a synagogue or a church after not having been there, and then sort of opening up and expanding on spirituality in a way that they hadn't before. Some folks who were, we've heard expressed before, who were absolute rationalists now are open to going to a breathwork group, for example, or some sort of energetic healing, Reiki, or simply returning to church, temple, synagogue, or finding some.
I'd be interested to hear the take of the church on that.
Well, interestingly enough, depending on the church and what church, there's certain, definitely within Catholic Church, there's an acceptance in some circles. I've heard Jesuits attending peyote ceremonies with folks they were working with, and there was a few fatwas issued out of Iran, and a fatwa isn't necessarily, in my limited understanding, a negative thing, but it's a religious proclamation accepting ayahuasca and other psychedelics as healing.
All right.
I know that there's there's a whole group, sort of official and unofficial group of Mormons who have gone to Ibogaine. I know that there are for drug addiction, and then saw the value in it. I know that there's a Greek Orthodox monk in Arizona who recommends Ibogaine to people. Yeah, I guess it depends on the group and the individual, but there is sort of an acknowledgement of that. And then, of course, the speculation around whether, some sort of deliberate or accidental dosing occurred when, for people who were describing, the miracles of the Bible or Bhagavad Gita or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I've heard some interesting, I don't remember the exact details, but some interesting takes on Moses and the burning bush, and how there may have been some kind of a psilocybin type of an element to that, or not psilocybin, it might have been something else. I don't remember.
Yeah, Syrian rue, I think people talk about. And, I mean, the speculation of that is also, it's kind of reductive too. I'm not crazy about those speculations, because what it's assuming is that talking burning bushes are impossible unless you're tripping, and I attest that they're not impossible
without the tripping.
I assert that. I assert that. Yeah, without the tripping, it's possible.
Okay.
And yeah.
Go ahead.
No, that's all.
Yeah. Okay. So, was there anything else to come out of the meeting on Tuesday night that you want to share now?
No, I think that was the main thing. I mean, again, we just come back to the same thing it always comes back to, is connection and love. And I think that was sort of the theme of my understanding of the fatwa, is if these medicines are here to do good, then they must be from God.
Okay. All right.
So yeah, I'm always down with the Ayatollahs, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no. I mean, it's just an interesting angle that, it's like, I wonder, prior to the experience, someone who says that they were an atheist prior to the experience, and then they say afterwards they've either gone back to their religion or found a religion.
I've seen that many times. I've seen that many times. And I've also seen people renew their faith and, go back. But I've seen that. And I've also seen people just stay atheist. I just don't get it personally, but,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you can do an Ibogaine trip for 4 days and all that shit come up. And, if not, like, I guess we could take the word theist out, because I think theist sort of implies like maybe one, like sort of an order.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say that if you, sort of not vaguely spiritual after that, or profoundly spiritual after that, I mean, Buddhists aren't theists. And yeah, I've seen Buddhists who do plant medicines deep in their practice. So, yeah, but I mean, I don't get it. I'd like to hear from atheists who trip and break it down for me. I'd like to hear that. So write that shit.
Yeah, no, I definitely would like to hear that too. I mean, it'd be interesting to get a couple of people together and hear what they have to say, from both sides of that point. The ones who are still atheists after the experience, the ones who were atheists before the experience and are now no longer atheists. Yeah, it'd be an interesting conversation. So,
Yeah.
So was there somebody in particular in this group on Tuesday night that did talk about something like that said that they were an atheist beforehand?
No, not. There are more people struggling with faith.
Struggling with faith. Okay.
Yeah. And it was renewed. It was renewed. Okay. So was that what brought them to the medicine? Was it they were struggling with faith? Yeah, I think they were looking for some kind of, like, I keep on hearing this, like a move, or at least it comes to me, this moving of the needle in terms of their own journey. And they were looking for something to sort of move that needle.
Okay.
Towards, I guess, what we call health, if not healing.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. There was one woman that I don't know if this exactly applies to what we're talking about, but she had done mushrooms and gotten to this point where she didn't think it was possible to go any further, and she asked for release, and it was just sort of dropped into blackness. Thought she somehow failed, which is the thing I want to kind of watch out for folks, that somehow she failed God or the medicine or something like that.
Because she didn't have the experience that she was hoping to have?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What did you say to somebody like that?
That they didn't do anything wrong, that they didn't fail, that there's no right way. There's no, I mean, unless you get into sort of the religious, dogmatic traditional teachings of what is the right way and what is the wrong way and what constitutes, a good trip and not, I mean, it's kind of up to her, but I also I wanted her to sort of have the information that it wasn't her necessarily.
And now, have you ever had experiences with somebody that have come to you and say that they felt like they failed, and then went on in the future to have another experience where it was successful?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, but they didn't fail. I mean, no.
Well, their feeling is that they failed.
Yeah. And then I've had people go through several experiences and never got anything out of it.
Never.
Anything really positive. I mean, and I think that's why contextualizing things, not to make someone sort of gaslight someone into making a bad trip into a good trip, but contextualizing, like, what has it done on this journey to the medicines, to the drugs, and what has happened in the meantime. Meaning, like, the person there's a guy who comes in who hasn't had a huge jump in their life has changed, but not sort of like right after a psychedelic experience. Their life's changed because their way of looking at the world has changed, and maybe not necessarily through the effects, the drug effects, but by the way that by coming to psychedelics, they've had to make a shift in their way of viewing things, and that sort of expanded not only the way of doing things, but their willingness to search way beyond the box, which has had an effect. The search has had an effect. The widening of the perception, not necessarily because of the drug use, but because of the process, has widened their life.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're touching on like a saying that I've heard. It says, you change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change.
Yeah.
So you would say that the use of the plant medicine facilitates that transformation, transforming how you look at something.
No, I don't say the use not necessarily. I say the pursuit can, and the use can.
Okay. So it's all components of the same journey.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Well, that sounded like a very interesting meeting.
It always is. I swear it is.
Yeah, it always is. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So let's tell people where they can find you.
You can book a space on the website, and we are. What's the address again? I think I should know this address by
now. The street address or the website address? Website
address. Yeah.
DimitriMugianis.com, and the physical address of your meetings every Tuesday night. It's 116 West 23rd Street on the 5th floor. It starts at 7 p.m. every Tuesday night. Cost is $30. And like you said, you can book online, reserve your spot, and pay for your spot right online. So
right on.
You have a guaranteed spot when you get there.
Right on.
All right, Dimitri.
All right, brother.
That wraps
Thank
up
you.
another disintegration recap. Thank you very much.
Thanks, bro.
And I'll see you on the next one.
Yeah.